Thank you, Reverend Hurley, for having me and welcoming members of Temple Emanu-El and to all this incredible congregation here at South Highland Presbyterian Church. Thanks for having me speak. Many Jewish people, kids, we go to the Holocaust museums, whether here in DC. Some of us have been to concentration camps in Germany or in Poland, Czech Republic. We feel the power, we see the brutality, and then we find a way to live with it. And maybe this is a blessing because after we go to these horrific sites, we do other things. We are reminded of the beautiful nuances of life, and we weren't alive in between 1933 and 1945. But now, everything has changed. What happened a week ago in Israel will completely redefine how the Jewish people in Israel and throughout the world, how we respond, how we pray, how we get together. Reverend Hurley asked me to offer this drash, the Svar Torah, a different iteration, the one that I gave on Friday at Temple Emanu-El. And for us, the Jewish community, and I've no doubt you've seen this on social media, that we're never going to forget the cries of mothers wanting their children back. We're never going to see the images of, and this wasn't supposed to happen anymore, of babies who were sent to the infernos. And the hardest part for so many Jews in this world, in which we are lamenting constantly this past week, is the hostages in Gaza. The 3-year-olds, the 4-year-olds, the grandmothers. Earlier you mentioned about bringing the power of prayer to help with uncertainty. This pain of uncertainty that these families are facing and what the Jewish people are facing, we can feel the tangibility of the uncertainty of this pain. The rabbis tell us, these are the great rabbis, that the way we mourn, it's in 3 stages. The first way we mourn is that we cry to represent our sadness. The second way we mourn is the pure silence, the pure shock. The feeling that over 1,500 Jews and others are not going to be around anymore. And third, the rabbis tell us that our pain and how our silence hinders our courage, but through the power of prayer is how we're spent to move forward. And again, I think that's easier said than done. In Judaism, we say a prayer called the Mortar's Kaddish. We say this when someone passes away. We say this when it's the anniversary of a death, and we also say it when we're in the different stages of mourning. The first 7 days, the next 23 days, and the remaining 11 months. But the prayer is not about death at all. It's about public praise for God, and the tradition is that every time we recite the Mortar's Kaddish in its liturgical formula, we are able to elevate the soul to the next stage of the heavens. And it's also during the Mortar's Kaddish when we remember those who meant so much to us. And if I said this prayer now or your morning liturgy, I have no doubt that so many of you have loved ones who have passed away. And you remember the legacies, you remember their memories, you remember their characteristics, the things that you remember to keep their memory alive through the power of legacy. But also the Mortar's Kaddish is a way to say goodbye. It's a way to say goodbye to perhaps a loved one who really wasn't that loving. Painful moments, those adversities we experience in life, and above all, the hardest lesson that we learned is what not to do. So the way that I've been trying to process this, the way that I've been trying to make any meaning of this, because the cruelty of this attack is going to completely forever change the Jewish high holidays, Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, Sukkot, Simchas Torah. This is our 9/11, but I want you to imagine that 2,999 lives were lost on 9/11. This is the equivalent of us losing 35,000 Americans in one single moment, based on the population size. So we're going to have to live with this, I don't like saying the word new normal, that's a COVID thing. This is going to live in our hearts. It's going to be a void. And I think there's a way for us to come together, and I'm going to explain it. And this is the words that I said to Temple Bethel and Temple Emanu-El, and I think it works for every form of religiosity in the power of prayer, whatever our faith traditions are. So if we're going to understand the events of what happened, I want us to say goodbye to, and this is what I told Temple Bethel. If there's any lesson, if there's any meaning for the worst time for Jews since the Nazis, it's for us to say goodbye to the internal divisions of the Jewish community. And how do we understand it today for us? It's time for us to say goodbye to our own fractions. You know, I was tired of labels of being Reformed, conservative, and Orthodox, and maybe for us that we're all Christians, we're Presbyterians, we're Episcopalians, we're Baptists, we're all one. It may matter that we have different levels of observances, and I know we do in the different religious traditions, but we're all people of the book. So people say, how can we become united with different faith traditions? Whether we're Jewish, Christian, or Muslim, Sikh, we say goodbye to the politicking, we say goodbye to the internal conflicts. We say goodbye to how our own actions divided our families and our community members for our own gain. We say goodbye to the pettiness that we created. We say goodbye to the complaining, and we say hello to finding perspective. I am a rabbi. I am across the street. But this morning, I'm a Jew. I'm a father. I'm a husband. I'm a son. And I know that spiritual leaders are supposed to have this armor, but like so many of us, there is this black hole of despair in my soul. And we're going to be living with this, with the brutality of the human condition for so many times. So I'm going to make this pledge to you guys. Regardless of my title, regardless of my role in this community, it's time for me as a human to find more perspective. It's a time for me to say goodbye, or the least that I can, the best that I can, to the qualities that don't help me improve my own imperfections. And for those lives that were taken away, and this can be for all of you, it's our job, it's our duty to permeate joy, kindness, to make amends, and we do it for them. I owe it for every single baby that was burnt, beheaded. I say it to the Palestinian victims whom Hamas has used as human shields. To make this horrid tragedy, to do something good, is for us to say goodbye to the bad and say hello to us finding our good selves. There's a story in our tradition that when Moses and Aaron were mourning the death of their sister Miriam, they didn't know what to do. Their sadness, their pain, their grief. They also had a people, a newly freed Israelite community trying to find their own purpose about what to do. And it's at this moment we learn in Judaism that God comforted Moses and Aaron, catching their tears. And after mourning and after crying, God said to them, "It's time to get back into the world. Sadness, grief, and bereavement are part of the human experience, but it does not free us from our duty to live our lives and to be there for the living. For the Jewish community, and for all of you who are experiencing your own forms of adversity and challenges, it's always going to take time for us to live life. But it doesn't stop us from saying goodbye to the divisions. We need each other more than ever. And I can tell you this, I love data, that faith is good for you. I have an obligation to fill my pews, and we have an obligation to bring pews back to the church, people back, because we know that faith makes one happy. We need each other more than ever. And every time you hear the Jewish prayer for remembering the dead or for our own liturgy, it reminds us that we are still in this world, that we're still picking up the brokenness of the shattered glasses to bring the good. And this is my passion, this is my mission to you guys as your neighbor moving forward. May Hashem, may the God of Most High comfort the mourners of all Jerusalem, and may God bless this entire congregation. Again, I want to thank Reverend Hurley for allowing me to share my thoughts on what will be a very difficult next few months. But we thank God that we have you across the street. Hazakul Baruch, strength and blessings to this holy congregation.